I'm Ben Margolis with the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, the world's largest anti-poverty movement. And we're here because we're calling on delegates at the conference to really take urgent action on climate change, because we see our constituents all over the world see that today and not tomorrow people are being affected by climate change, people are dying because of the impacts of climate change. And we're hoping that from this conference we get some real agreements from the world's leaders on several measures, specifically on adaptation and on more funding for adaptation above and beyond the 0.7% aid commitments already. Also on deforestation, and really importantly on negotiations around the post-Kyoto Protocol, and making sure that those negotiations, the world's poorest countries' voices are heard, and that the world's richest countries take the responsibility for historic carbon emissions, take that into account when agreeing the post-Kyoto framework for tackling climate change. So we really hope that at the end of this meeting we don't just see another talking shop where people come together and they agree that this is a huge problem, but that they actually agree it's a huge problem and put in place some of the measures needed to tackle it really urgently.
Would you prefer that this conference was about cutting out the use of fossil fuel instead of reducing emissions?
It's got to be based on what works for countries all over the world. I think it's very nice to say that we'd like to see a complete cutting of fossil fuels, and I think in an ideal world that is what we'd be looking for. But in reality, for many of the world's poorest countries, their economies rely heavily on fossil fuels still. So for example, in Timor-Leste and East Timor, 82% of GDP to that country is from their oil reserves. So it's very difficult to say at this stage completely cut fossil fuels, because for such a poor country that would have a devastating impact on the world's poor. So I think what's really important is that the world's richest governments really invest money in technology transfer, in renewable energy sources, so that countries like Timor-Leste and others can start to move away from an oil-based economy to a renewable energy economy.